respect the limits of the appropriations as approved by Parliament. We will rationalize the management of the compensation of employees, including conducting headcount across the country. Mr. Speaker, I now turn my attention or my focus to the state of the Ghanaian economy as at 31st December 2025. Right Honorable Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I now focus my attention on the state of the Ghanaian economy as at 31st December 2024. Mr. Speaker, hands on heart, we inherited an economy in deep crisis. Mr. Speaker, an economy hard hit with debt and beset by other fiscal challenges, such as large accumulation of MDA arrears, energy sector shortfalls, and financial sector payments. Mr. Speaker, weak commitment control and reckless public spending have reversed the progress made in fiscal consolidation, even under the IMF program that commenced in the year 2023. Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the gains made under the IMF-supported program that was to achieve through the painful sacrifice of domestic bondholders, external creditors, and taxpayers, the economy remains in distress. Right Honorable Speaker, key performance indicators to be assessed by the IMF staff in the upcoming fourth review of the program, scheduled for April 2025, such as the primary balance on commitment basis, inflation, social protection, and others, as at end 2024, are likely missed. Right Honorable Speaker, in addition, all structural benchmarks due by end December 2024 are also missed. So, Speaker, inflation worsened in the year 2024 from 23.2% in the year 2023 to 23.8% in 2024. So, Speaker, the 2024 end period inflation also exceeded the budget target of 15% by 8.8 percentage points and the IMF central target of 18% by 5.8 percentage points. Unfortunately, this has triggered a discussion with IMF under the monetary policy consultation clause. Right Honorable Speaker, the primary balance on commitment basis worsened from a deficit of 0.2% of GDP in the year 2023 to a deficit of 3.9% in the year 2024. Mr. Speaker, the primary balance on commitment basis target for 2024 was a surplus of 0.5% of GDP. Sadly, the previous government recorded a deficit of 3.9 percentage point of GDP. This presents a slippage of a whopping 4.4 percentage point. Right Honorable Speaker, at the end of December 2024, total central government arrears amounted to 67.5 billion Ghana cedis, representing 5.2% of GDP. The Speaker, with the road sector recording an arrest of 21 billion Ghana cedis. The Speaker, when I assumed office on the 23rd of January 2025, my office was inundated with requests for payment for many contractors and suppliers. To ascertain the total arrears and outstanding payment for all MDAs, the Ministry of Finance decided to formally request all MDAs on the 28th of January 2028 to submit information on all arrests and outstanding claims for validation. Subsequently, Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Finance held a special hearing with the MDAs to validate the arrests that were submitted for payment. The response from the MDAs and the validation revealed that a staggering amount of 67.5 billion Ghana cedis is owed to government contractors and suppliers. Mr. Speaker, this consists of MDA's outstanding interim payment of invoices worth 49.2 billion and bank transfer advice at the Controller Accountant General worth 18.3 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, this 67 billion excludes $1.73 billion owed to independent power producers, This 67 billion also exclude 68 billion Ghana cedis owned by Electricity Company of Ghana to contractors. Mr. Speaker, this 67 billion US dollars also exclude the 32 billion owned by the Ghana Cocoa Board to contractors. And Mr. Speaker, this 67.5 billion also excludes the 5.75 billion owned by the Ghana Road Fund to various contractors. Right, Honorable Speaker, the Bank of Ghana is also seeking an amount of 53 billion Ghana cedis as bailout to be able to address their negative equity challenge that they face. Mr. Speaker, as part of the measures to address these mounting accumulated arrears, we have commissioned an audit of these arrears payment and guarantee value for money before a penny will be paid. Mr. Speaker, before a penny will be paid, we'll commit to do that arrears. Right, Honorable Speaker, in addition to the 67.5 billion cedis in arrears, the validation process also revealed that MDAs have awarded contract to the tune of a minimum 194 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, this amount represents 16.5% of GDP as at the end of 2024, with the road sector again alone accounting for 100 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, most of these contractors and most of these contracts were awarded without commencement certificate and authorization. Mr. Speaker, this is in blatant violation of the Public Financial Management Act 921. Right, Honorable Speaker, let me now update you on our debt service obligations. Mr. Speaker, apart from the huge arrears and commitment, our fiscal situation is further complicated by huge bullet debt service and constrained fiscal financing options. Currently, Mr. Speaker, the government option to finance the budget is limited to only Treasury bill market following the debt restructuring program. Moreover, the forthcoming debt service of both domestic and Eurobond debt obligation will have profound implications for fiscal sustainability and balance of payment. Right, Honorable Speaker, domestic debt service alone, programmed for the next 4 years, is 150.3 billion Ghana cedis. So, Speaker, simply put, the interest and principal payment that will be due for payment beginning now for the next 4 years is 150.3 billion Ghana cedis. This represents 11.6% of GDP in domestic debt service obligation alone. The Speaker, of this 150 billion US Ghana cedis, 73.3% of this 150 billion Ghana cedis is due for payment in the year 2027 and 2028. Right, Honorable Speaker, 2027 alone, the domestic debt service that will be falling due will be 57.6 billion, and 2028 will be made to call upon to pay 52.5 billion Ghana cedis. So, Speaker, the debt service obligation of 2027 and 2028 are major harms. These harms are cancerous and pose significant risks to the economy of Ghana. But, Mr. Speaker, touch wood, we shall fix it. We shall fix it. Mr. Speaker, our debt service obligation of this financial year is equally burdensome with significant harms. February, we were called upon to pay 9.9 billion. July, we'll be paying 6.2 billion. And August, we'll be paying 10.1 billion, all this year. Right, Honorable Speaker, the fiscal challenges are further compounded by the significant short-term Treasury bill that we also inherited. So, Speaker, these obligations, totaling about 111.1 billion Ghana cedis, requires rollover week in, week out, placing additional pressure on cash flows and liquidity requirements. Mr. Speaker, beyond the domestic maturities, Ghana faces significant external debt service obligations for the next 4 years. The next 4 years will be made to call upon to pay 8.7 billion US dollars, representing 10.9% of GDP, with heavy concentration again in the year 2027 and 2028. Again, Mr. Speaker, 55% of this external debt service will be due in the year 2027 and 2028. Right, Honorable Speaker, in the year 2027, we'll be made to pay $2.5 billion US, and 2028, we'll have to again pay $2.4 billion US. Right, Honorable Speaker, it seems the debt restructuring undertaken by the previous administration was designed to make 2027 and 2028 debt repayment heavy, sadly. So, Speaker, I don't know how come we sat and allowed that design to happen. So, Speaker, that is cancerous. But I can assure you, we will fix it. Mr. Speaker, in spite of all this upcoming domestic and external debt service obligation, no buffers were built to cushion this unprecedented debt service burden. Mr. Speaker, as of 7 January 2025, the debt service reserve account, the sinking fund in dollar, has a balance of $64,000 US. The Speaker, when we were leaving office, we left behind $319 million US in that same account. The Speaker, the debt service reserve CD account had an amount of 143 million Ghana cedis. Right, Honorable Speaker, when we were leaving office, the balance was 430 million Ghana cedis. The Speaker, I now move you to stalled project. The Speaker, due to the bilateral creditors' debt restructuring that is ongoing, undertaken by previous administration, a staggering number of 55 projects have been halted. So, Speaker, this leaves a massive amount of $3 billion Ghana US in undisbursed loans and about $300 million in outstanding interim payment certificates, IPCs. Some of these projects include the famous Afenyo Hospital, the KJTIA Market Phase 2, the Bolgatanga Boko Pomakrom Road, and the Tema Aflawa Road project. Delayed payment and demobilization from site could result in cost overruns of over $1.1 billion US. Right, Honorable Speaker, the IMF-supported program imposed an annual disbursement ceiling of $250 million for all bilateral loans that are being restructured. This constraint means that it will take a minimum of 12 years to complete all of this stalled program. So, Speaker, unfortunately, as a result of the debt restructuring, all this stalled program, working with the IMF will take a minimum of 12 years if we decide to go business as usual. We'll be engaging in the coming days to resolve this challenge. Speaker, I now take you to the famous energy sector fiscal risk. Mr. Speaker, the increase in energy sector financing shortfall is posing significant risk to the Ghanaian economy. In the year 2024, the Ministry of Finance supported the energy sector with payment of about 20.8 billion Ghana cedis. These resources could have been used for job creation and other development programs, like roads, schools, and hospitals, if the sector inefficiencies were resolved. The Speaker, a recent exercise conducted by the Energy Sector Financing Modeling Team under the Energy Sector Recovery Program, ESRP, revealed that the business-as-usual energy sector financing shortfall has increased significantly to about 35 billion Ghana cedis for the year 2025 alone, even after spending in excess of 20 billion cedis in the year 2024. Right, Honorable Speaker, more importantly, the shortfall for the period 2023 to 2026 has been estimated to be about 140 billion Ghana cedis. The Speaker, this amount is 20 times more than the allocation for goods and service for all MDAs in the year 2025. The Speaker, in addition, the energy sector shortfalls, which relate to current invoices that are largely unpaid legacy arrears due to the independent power producers. So, Speaker, the legacy arrears stood at $1.73 billion US as at end 2024. Right, Honorable Speaker, the cocoa sector, which has long been the backbone of the Ghanaian economy, is sadly on its knees, owing to gross mismanagement. Mr. Speaker, the sector faces declining output and financing challenges, characterized by unsustainable debt, rollover cocoa contract risk, and quasi-fiscal expenditures, including cocoa roads, which, Mr. Speaker, is a non-core function of the Ghana Cocoa Board. Right Honorable Speaker, cocoa production has dropped by nearly 50% over the past 3 years. In the year 2023-2024 crop season, Cocoa Board was unable to supply 330,000 tons of cocoa to meet its contractual obligation. This sharply decline has affected the finances of Ghana Cocoa Board. This undersupply has been rolled over for subsequent years for the new administration to pay. So, Speaker, these 2023 to 2024 forward sales contracts, locked in at lower prices than the current market rates, have resulted in revenue losses of about $840 million for both Ghana Cocoa Board and the impoverished cocoa farmer. Right Honorable Speaker, the rollout cocoa contract has resulted in a loss of $495 million for the year 2025 alone. So, Speaker, these are the risks in relation to the market price differentials and, as a result, costs causing the smuggling that we see with Ghana Cocoa Board. So, Speaker, Cocoa Board outstanding debt amount to 32 billion Ghana cedis, of which 11.92 billion is due to be paid in the year 2025. Outstanding cocoa road contracts reached 21 billion Ghana cedis, approximately $1.3 billion in the year 2024. Of which only 4.4 billion has been accounted for in Cocoa Board's finances for the year 2025. Mr. Speaker, the financial sector still struggles even after spending 30.3 billion in the financial sector cleanup exercise by end 2024. This includes 26.9 billion Ghana cedis after spending this amount in the banking sector. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, the financial sector is still struggling, and the financial sector will require 10.45 billion Ghana cedis to address the financial sector legacy issues and emerging risk. In addition, Mr. Speaker, an amount of 2.2 billion Ghana cedis is required to fully capitalize the National Investment Bank and the Agricultural Development Bank of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, I will also update the House on the fiscal performance for the year 2024. Mr. Speaker, the fiscal performance in the year 2024 was characterized by improved revenue collection, but with significant expenditure overruns. In addition, large arrears were accumulated over the period. Mr. Speaker, in summary, the provisional data shows the following. 1. Primary balance on commitment basis, the key fiscal anchor of the IMF program, worsened from a deficit of 0.2% of GDP at the end of 2023 to a deficit of 3.9% of GDP at the end of the year 2024. This is 4.4 percentage points worse than the target surplus of 0.5% of GDP. Sadly, Mr. Speaker, on cash basis, Mr. Speaker, the primary balance was a deficit of 1.2% of GDP against a target of 0.6% of GDP, representing 100% deviation. Mr. Speaker, the overall fiscal balance on commitment basis for 2024 was a deficit of 7.9% of GDP against a target of 4.2% of GDP, while the overall fiscal balance on cash basis was a deficit of 5.2% of GDP against a target of 5.3% of GDP. Total revenue and grant amounted to 186.6 billion Ghana cedis, or 15.9% of GDP, 5.3% above the revised target of 177.2 billion Ghana cedis, or 17.4% of GDP. 5. So, Speaker, we remain committed to the pursuit of our 24-hour economic policy at stimulating economic growth and job creation. Right Honourable Speaker, this policy will contribute to addressing Ghana's structural economic challenge by creating an integrated, efficient, and increasingly export-driven industrial economy that fulfills the utilization of our national resources, capital, and labour power. Right Honourable Speaker, will be presenting the 24-hour economic policy to Parliament in due course. In this respect, Mr. Speaker, the Labour Act, the Ghana Investment Promotion Act, and other enabling legislations will be reviewed accordingly as a country. Mr. Speaker, the 2025 budget is a culmination of the true aspirations, felt needs, genuine desires of the people of Ghana, expressed through the engagement with diverse stakeholders. As part of our broad consultation also, ahead of the budget, we recently engaged traders at major trading centers, including the Mokola market, to listen to their concerns, gauge their expectations, and elicit their input. So, Speaker, the extensive consultation revealed that the overriding concern among Ghanaian traders and business community remains price and exchange rate stability. Apart from eroding their working capital, exchange rate volatilities makes effective business planning impossible and increase the cost of doing business. This budget outlines far-reaching measures which will be implemented in close collaboration with the Central Bank, the Bank of Ghana, to effectively and efficiently manage the exchange rate